Hi, welcome to Exploring Florida. I'm Kris Thoemke. Well, this week we're going to take a look at the future of agriculture. To do this, I've come to the Land at Walt Disney World's EPCOT Center. Peter Cook, my guest, is going to show us how visitors to one of America's greatest theme parks learned that agriculture is more than just growing plants in the soil. Peter's inside and I'm going to go find him, so stay with me.
The production of Exploring Florida is made possible by the generous support of the members of Southwest Florida Public Television. It is members like you that keep the public in public television.
Busy already, I see.
I'm busy already. I'm glad you're here, and what can I tell you about this place before we go out into the back there?
The one thing that I've wondered about since the first time I came here was, why did Walt Disney World, when they built Epcot, decide to have a pavilion called the Land? What's special about that?
Well, EPCOT Center divided into two parts, Future World and World Showcase. In Future World, we're showcasing different technologies that are important and integrated into any community of human beings. And agriculture is certainly one of the most important. I mean, that's the source of our food. The Land is a showcase of agriculture technology. Our job here is to communicate agriculture through a unique display of crops, tools, and technologies, and a few other attractions here in the pavilion.
So people, when they come here, then they're getting an education. They might not know it, but they're getting an education.
That's true. I think EPCOT Center really is an interesting mix of education and entertainment. Certainly Walt Disney World as a company has a tremendous experience and credibility as an entertaining company, and with some knowledge contributed by the scientific staffs that have been hired here. You can combine that with the entertainment, you've got a really incredible educational experience for our guests.
Well, real quick, what can the people see when they come in here? It looks very busy today.
Well, the first thing they see is this fountain and the balloons floating up and down. Excuse me. This is our farmers market area where guests can partake of a variety of fast foods, not including hamburgers or hot dogs, not including very healthy foods at this fast food restaurant. Now behind this is the Land Grill Room right over here, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but another restaurant in the pavilion. Other attractions here include the Harvest Theater, which is right over here behind me. The Harvest Theater is where we showcase a movie called Symbiosis, a very high quality film that takes our guests on a trip around the world to look at the variety of ways in which man interacts with his environment through agriculture for his own survival. Okay. Now, another major attraction in the Land Pavilion is the Listen to the Land boat ride. It's about a 15 or 20 minute boat ride through greenhouses where the scientific staff, which is what I'm a part of, actually grows crops and displays modern technologies of agriculture to help us communicate the agriculture. Another attraction here is the Kitchen Cabaret, which is a musical theater show using audio animatronic fruits and vegetables.
Talking fruits and
milk
vegetables,
cartons and bread, Yeah, they're talking about, singing about good nutrition, good human nutrition. Now there's one other attraction, and that is what we call the Harvest Tour. The Harvest Tour is a walking tour through the greenhouse area, and it's with one of our scientific staff members. The guests who have taken a boat ride, may spend only about 8 minutes in the greenhouses. They actually get to spend 45 minutes on the Harvest Tour, take pictures, ask questions, learn a lot about how we do the things we do here to educate our guests about agriculture.
Well, what are the chances of maybe you and I wandering around in some of the greenhouses and taking a little bit closer look at some of this. I would love to see it.
They're excellent.
Okay.
Why don't we go down there and take a look?
Let's do it.
Great. Let's go this way.
Okay. Peter, one thing that I notice about EPCOT, in fact all of Disney World, is how ordered and structured everything is. And when you consider the army of people that come through here, how does this all accomplished?
32,000 employees does a big part of the job here at Walt Disney World. It's incredible. Now the land pavilion, of course, the agricultural support team is much smaller than that. We only have probably about 36 employees here, and even a third of those, about a dozen, are college students in an internship program where they come for 6 months. And those are the people we may see doing some work here in the show as we walk along.
Like replanting some of these areas here that
exactly.
are
as you can see,
now.
it is a working greenhouse. When the plants reach maturity, we harvest the fruit, we sell them in the restaurant, or deliver to the restaurant, and then we replant the areas.
And how many people will come through here in the course of the year and see all of this?
Well, we're going to see about 10 to 12 million guests every year coming through here. So it's a heck of an educational opportunity for our guests.
Yeah. Well, you know, there's another thing I noticed. The plants here look perfect. I mean, the fruit are not, the vegetables are not blemished or anything. How do you do all that in a greenhouse situation? What about the pests?
Some people may accuse us of pulling out the plants every day and putting in new ones the next day. That's not true. Believe me, a lot of effort goes into it, and probably the most important aspect of our daily operation and our research and the success that we have with the plants has to do with controlling pests and diseases. Probably the most interesting aspect of that is this program called Integrated Pest Management, in which we use a variety of tools to control insect pests.
More than just chemicals.
More than just chemicals, and it's allowed us to reduce our dependence on chemicals so that they are effective and safe when we do use them. But the most interesting aspect is probably biological control, where we're using natural predators and parasites to control the insect pests, for instance. I can show you some examples right here.
Okay.
This happens to be a lima bean plant that has been exposed to a very major insect pest called the leaf miner. The leaf miner is a small fly about 1/16 of an inch long that lays its egg inside the leaf, and the larva hatches out and eats its way through the leaf, creating these tracks or
that's
mines.
What these tracks are here?
Right, the white areas.
This is what most people's gardens look like.
Oh, it's, you know, this is incredible, and that looks nothing like the plants we've got here on display.
Yeah.
These eggplant, for instance, they're perfect. But the reason that they are perfect is because, in part, because we're using a natural parasitic wasp. Actually, it's a parasitoid wasp of the leaf miner. It's about the same size, 1/16 of an inch long. This little wasp, which I also have an example of here, exists in life only to land on a leaf and find that leaf miner larva and lay its egg in there. And then its larva will consume the larva of the leaf miner. And that's how we control them. In fact, we actually rear these things, and a little later I'll show you how we do that.
Okay. But then what, you just let them go?
That's right. We let them
they
go.
Fly around and have a good time.
Our entomologists spend a lot of time out here looking for and documenting the concentration of pests on our plants, and at certain points when we know it's appropriate, we will then release the beneficial insects here to control, in the proper amounts, to control the pests.
And that's what's allowed these plants, these eggplants here, to look the way they are, huh?
That's part of it, exactly.
If you're small around here, it's a vicious world.
That's right. Oh, the small world is vicious, and I'll show you a little bit of that a little later, too.
What's this?
I just wanted to mention quickly, besides chemical control and biological control, we also have mechanical control. This is an example of mechanical control. This is modern fly paper.
Fly paper, huh?
This is a sticky board. This happens to be a yellow sticky board. Most flying insects are attracted to the color yellow. We know now that some insects are attracted to other colors, but by putting the appropriate board in a proper location, you can actually attract the insects to the board. They get stuck to it, and so they're mechanically removed from the whole scene. You know, not a problem any longer. So that's another way that we can control our insect pests.
Okay. Well, can we take some more look at some of these other places where you've got some of the insect work going on?
You bet, we sure can. Let's go this way. Kris, you're probably wondering why I brought you into this room.
Yeah, it looks a little different here with the test chambers you've got.
Right. This room is a back lab. We call it the back lab. We do some of our preparatory work for our biological control here. In fact, you may remember I showed you the leaf miner damage on some plants out there and the little wasp that we used to control that.
Yeah, right.
here we conduct some experiments as well as rear these animals in captivity. We rear the leaf miner, the pest itself, simply because we can conduct experiments on it back here. And we're rearing the wasp to conduct those experiments and also for releasing into the show to control the leaf miner.
So this is your own little hatchery back here.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that is very important about integrated pest management biological control is basically, you know, how you release those, how you control the pest by releasing these organisms. It's easy enough to release so many of the wasps that we wipe out all the leaf miners there. But what happens when the leaf miners are wiped out?
More are probably going to come back, aren't they? Sooner
It's
or
going to
later?
come back, that's
Yeah.
right. And before they do,
And the wasps are going to
wasps are
move
gonna
out or
fly
die
off.
or who knows what.
exactly, fly off or die of starvation, exactly. So really the premise for successful biological control has to do with just putting out enough of these parasites or predators to reduce your pest population to a level that the damage that is done is tolerable. And you notice there was relatively little damage out in the show.
Oh yeah, I mean, you had to look long and hard to find a leaf that was damaged,
Right.
really.
We could tolerate a little more damage than that, but the point is, if we had wiped out all of those pests, we would have lost the wasp that we had invested so much effort into.
You know, those are big greenhouses out there. How do these small insects find each other?
Right, that's a good question. That's a good question. One of the ways is we're careful in releasing them near the area that we know that there's going to be a problem. But we have been concerned also about why they don't stray to other crops on either side, you see, that may also have damage. And it would be to our advantage to confine them to a particular area that we wish them to be in. And so we have done some research here in which we have researched the ability of these wasps to locate their prey in a crop, in a field of this crop. And
How do they do that?
How do they do that? Well, they've got binoculars. No, that's not so.
Little binoculars,
It's not
yeah.
binoculars. It's actually by smell. We have learned we do some tests in a little chamber here we call an olfactometer, in which we have been able to demonstrate that these animals can distinguish between the smells that are given off by plants that have not been infested by pests and plants that have been infested by pests. They can tell the difference in the way they smell.
And they must have pretty good noses, and they don't
Yeah,
even
I
have
guess they
noses.
must, exactly. Somehow or other,
Somehow they can
detect
there must
this.
be some chemical or something.
Yeah, exactly.
probably.
And the chemical changes. They can even tell the difference between a plant that has been damaged by a pest and a plant that has been damaged by something other than a pest. And they won't fly to the plant that was damaged by not a pest. It will only fly to the plant that has the pest damage. And that's good evolutionarily because it conserves a lot of energy. They waste no time. They're very efficient at getting there and laying their eggs and doing their job. It's good for us too because we know if we release them on here and in fact they will go to that plant because we know now that we can actually train them. They can be entrained to go to a particular plant.
Trained
Yeah.
wasps.
All you have to do, exactly, all you have to do is take the young wasps, the first time out of their first exposure to any plant should be to a plant that you're growing, that you want to protect, and the plant, and it should be damaged by the leaf miner. Then they will be able to smell that, and then when you release them out there, they go right to it. On it. So we know now that in fact we could actually train these insects to go out there and attack look for pests on a particular crop and not be distracted by the crop next to it, even if it has got the same pest damage.
It's amazing. I guess anything is possible at EPCOT.
I guess it could be, and these are pretty exciting research projects
Oh
we're
yeah, I
working
mean,
on.
nobody knew this probably till you started on it.
Well, until I told you.
Yeah,
But-
I'm surprised certainly.
We've got a whole lot of other research projects. As a matter of fact, maybe I could show you one. We're doing some work with NASA, in fact, and if you'd like to see that, I'll show it to you now.
Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Great, let's walk out here.
Okay.
Well, Kris, here we are in the what we call the Creative House. This is the tail end of our Listen to the Land boat ride, and in here we're first of all using a technology, a form of hydroponics called aeroponics, in which we either spray the hydroponic solution on the roots of plants, or we're just laying the roots in a shallow film of that hydroponic solution. And as you can see throughout the greenhouse, we have a very interesting
Squash plants there.
Very interesting ways of growing those plants. Yeah, those squash are growing on a conveyor. I know that caught your eye.
Yeah, it does. Well, you don't normally see plants hanging around.
Hanging around on a conveyor, and why the heck are they moving? You know,
Yeah.
The idea is we call it Creative House. We want our guests to, we want something to stimulate their imagination, their own creativity. And so that's why we do those things. We do them in very interesting ways.
Yeah, the hot peppers or the peppers over there, they look good too.
Oh, they are good, believe me.
I'll bet.
Yeah.
What is this here? I noticed NASA here. What's your connection with them?
Well, as long as we've been here, at least one of our staff members has been very much a proponent of and an enthusiast of some of the space work, the space experimentation. Right now, our plant pathologist, Dr. Andrew Sugar, is our space enthusiast, and he has maintained a relationship with the folks at Kennedy Space Center.
Which is not that far away,
Not
really.
that far away.
Yeah.
Not that far away. And they have some scientists there involved in a program called CELS, which is an acronym for Controlled Ecological Life Support Systems. And the basis or premise for this research program is to develop the technology to grow plants in space, on space stations, or on other long-duration space flights. And those plants would be used primarily to help bioregenerate all the waste products produced by the astronauts.
And new oxygen and everything.
Yeah, oxygen, exactly. And then secondarily, they would produce food. Probably thirdly, it serves as sort of a psychological release, a hobby type thing for the astronauts. They don't have to sit in front of a computer screen all day long. They can go tend to the plants, the garden. So what we're doing actually is we're actually participating in the research in a very realistic way. Andy is studying the development of plant root diseases in a growing system that is very similar in concept to the type of system that will wind up on a space station. And once he's finished, this information will be published in scientific journals, be made available to not only to NASA, but to anybody else who's interested.
And I noticed when we walked in over here, these plants are growing in a different looking soil.
Yeah, these plants are growing in a simulated lunar soil. A couple years ago, we hired a postdoctoral soil scientist from the University of Florida to come down and begin to develop a display on this topic. The reason is because, like the CELS program, there is another program that NASA supports in which many researchers across the country are working to develop a simulated lunar soil, a soil based on analysis
Samples
of
they brought back.
Yeah.
So this is
analysis of
not
those
real
samples.
soil from the moon.
Not real soil from the moon, but it's real soil from Earth, made to simulate the lunar soil. And the reason is so that agricultural scientists can get some experience growing plants in this soil before we actually have a base on the moon again.
You think that we'll be growing soybeans and
And
what is
wheat
this
here?
here?
Yeah.
Wheat someday on the moon?
Well, I don't know if it'll be soybeans and wheat per se, because
But something,
it
huh?
takes an awful lot of wheat out there to make a loaf of bread, you know.
Yeah.
But they'll certainly be growing something, you know, probably tomatoes and cucumbers and that kind of thing. And some of the characteristics of the soil are very interesting. The lunar soil is a very simple soil. It only has 4 basic minerals in it. It has no clay in there because the only kind of weathering that occurs on the moon is meteorite showers.
Yeah.
No pun intended.
Yeah, they could be kind of dangerous if you got
They could be
caught
very
out in one of
dangerous.
those. Okay, well, where else can we go from here? There's lots of things here.
Oh, there's lots of neat stuff to see.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about some engineering accomplishments that we've done here.
Okay.
We're going to take a look at the biotech laboratory as well.
Let's go take a look at the Biotech Lab.
Great.
Okay.
We're in the Biotechnology Lab now, Kris, and this is where we do tissue culture. We use tissue culture as a tool to enable us to reproduce a lot of the plants that we raise in the show. Mm-hmm. And we're also doing some very interesting research with tissue culture here as well.
You got quite an array of things. What are some of the things that are growing here?
Well, we grow cassava, for instance, which is, we saw it in the show, is a source of tapioca. That's what we do. And, but we're also doing a lot of other crops like the pineapples, the bananas. We're also doing some crops that aren't in the show, like some endangered species, some endangered plant species. For instance, there's one up in the northwestern U.S. that a tree that is relatively endangered that apparently is a source of a chemical that could be used to fight cancer.
Is that the one that the bark of the tree
Yeah, the bark of the tree is called Taxol.
Taxol,
That,
yeah, I remember
Taxol
hearing
is the
about
chemical
that.
anyway, the medical chemical. And but there's some concern that demand for that chemical might wipe out the trees. So we're actually been experimenting with tissue cultured reproduction of the trees in these tubes, so that to see if we couldn't produce the Taxol from these tubes, from the plants in these tubes, rather than having to go out and harvest the natural trees.
Oh yeah.
So that would save the forest, you see.
Yeah.
Likewise, we're also concerned here in Walt Disney World because we've got about 47 square miles of property, and we have plans to further develop some of that property. We are concerned that there are some species of plants on the property that might be endangered by some of the development. But by developing techniques and the ability to culture them and clone them in the laboratory, we could certainly ensure the survival of those species by relocating them to other parts of the property and go ahead with the development. So we're working on that aspect as well.
What are some of the species, do you know?
Well, lupin, for
Lupin
instance.
is
Lupin is a
yeah.
very common wild flower.
It's pretty,
very
the
pretty.
blue flowers?
Yeah, the blue ones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That can be done, and we've been very successful so far in developing a successful tissue culture of that here in captivity, in the laboratory. We're doing some work on that.
Sort of state-of-the-art research.
State-of-the-art stuff, right here
Doing
at
a
Walt
lot of
Disney
stuff
World.
that is, probably most people don't realize, this is actually a research facility as much as it is a place entertaining people.
It's a research facility. It's our guests get to see research underway, and of course that's of some educational value.
Because most people don't ever get to see that. You don't walk into a lab very often and look around.
Because they don't ever get to see it, it's certainly entertaining, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's different.
It's certainly different. So anyway, that's the kind of things that we do in the Biotechnology Laboratory. And in addition, our guests usually are able to even take a little bit of home with them. Some of these plants that we produce in these tubes, we actually package and sell as Disney's Teeny Greenies. So our guests can actually take home a tissue culture plantlet and watch it grow in the tube. It includes information about biotechnology and tissue culture, information on how they could transplant it.
That's got to be great for kids too. I mean, to take that into their class when they come back or something.
You know, this laboratory, this part of our show, above all the others, really, I think, presents to our guests the truly modern concept of agriculture. What tomorrow's agriculture is, it's today, it's happening in laboratories like this. Mm-hmm. It's not just farmers working with the dirt.
Yeah. Okay, well, show me more. There's got to be more to see.
Great. So now, Kris, here we are in the production house, and I wanted to show you something in particular. Our engineering team, and I did mention before, we are a multidisciplinary staff here.
A little bit of everything.
Our engineering team has been working on improved irrigation methods for our particular kind of hydroponics, and have developed a very interesting practical application of not a new technology, but a technology that was used only in research previously, and it's called a weighing lysimeter. You look underneath this
You're
plant.
talking about the white thing here, right?
Yeah, that's right. Right underneath this bag of rock wool is the weighing lysimeter. It's a special kind of scale that is connected to a computer, and it's actually weighing this bag and the plants on it and feeding that information to the computer. Now, the software that we developed is able to distinguish between changes in weight due to the growth of the plant or the setting of fruit and the changes in weight due to irrigating or the use of water by the plant. So actually the irrigation is controlled by the plants. Their consumption of water determines when the water comes on for them. And it turns out to be...
When you get thirsty, they get their own drink. Huh?
It's true. And it winds up, saving water as well as saving the fertilizer as well for us.
That's amazing. Now, this one is controlling, what, just these two plants, or?
No. This particular lysimeter controls this whole plot of peppers. We're looking at 5 rows of these peppers. So that's the real advantage of this. You can control any number of plants that are in the same environmental conditions. and the same state of growth.
And then the water just comes in through the small
Comes in,
tubes
drip
there,
irrigation
right?
comes in through the smooth tube here, and it's what the computer's controlling is a solenoid valve, an electrically controlled valve, which can be found in an irrigation box right near this plot.
And then do the nutrients come in this case also?
Sure, the nutrients are in the water. This
In
is
the water,
hydroponics.
huh?
Everything we raise here is hydroponic, which means that the nutrients are actually in the irrigation water.
Because you look at the area there for the soil and the roots. That's not much for a plant that's what, 6.5 feet tall or so.
Well, no, you're right, but it's certainly adequate for these tomatoes. In fact, you see, we've got 2 plants in each one of these bags. So, and in fact, it's possible to grow maybe as many as half a dozen different crops. In other words, succeeding crops of plants in this same bag before you would have to discard it.
Oh, so
Now
it's reusable.
It's reusable. See, these bags, this bag culture technology is very interesting. Besides being just convenient to work with, this plastic bag helps to retain moisture, so you're conserving moisture for the plants, but it also serves as a barrier against soil-borne diseases and pests.
Yeah.
And so we actually have to put less into protecting our plants by using this bag than otherwise.
And all I used to do was stick seeds in the ground and watch them grow. So it's a little more high-tech in
A
here.
little more high-tech. It shows the degree of control and the degree of knowledge that modern agricultural scientists have.
That's not bad. All right, well, let's press on.
Kris, we're in the Land Grill Room now, which is the full-service restaurant here in the Land Pavilion. And this is the spot where a lot of our produce winds up. Our guests can eat the land salad, which includes a lot of our vegetables whenever they're available. We have a dish here called the catch of the day, which involves some of the fish that we raise downstairs. And this restaurant, as you notice, is circular and it does rotate.
It's moving around a little bit, I
Yeah,
noticed
it takes our guests through some of the artificial biomes, which are on the first half of the Listen to the Land boat ride, before the guests get into the greenhouses where you and I spent some time today.
Okay, well, let's grab a seat and
Maybe we can try some of this land salad.
okay. How much food is growing at the land?
Well, we actually grow several tons a year. Almost 20 tons of food comes out of the greenhouses every day.
And here it comes.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
How are you?
Fine. And we're talking about 7 tons of salad crops every year. I mean, just lettuce, maybe 7 tons, maybe 7 tons of tomatoes. We do a couple tons of fish every year as well. And it all comes right in here.
And then people that see it growing one day can eat it the next day, huh?
They can eat it the same morning they see it. It's really an added experience to their visit to EPCOT Center.
Yeah, very unique way to do it.
Certainly is.
Peter, we're about out of time. I would like to thank you very much for showing me around today. This has been really interesting. I think we'll eat the salad.
Great,
Okay?
let's do it.
That's all the time we have here in Exploring Florida this week. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week.